Super Typhoon Uwan, a deep dive analysis. Super Typhoon Uwan, internationally known as Fung-wong, stands out as one of the most powerful and concerning tropical cyclones to threaten the Philippines and the wider East Asia region in the year it occurred. Its rapid intensification, massive size, and projected track made it a monster storm demanding immediate and comprehensive attention from governments, disaster agencies, and the public. Super Typhoon Uwan is defined by its extreme intensity and destructive potential, a classification that emphasizes the urgency of the threat. Origin and formation. Uwan originated as a tropical depression over the warm waters of the western Pacific Ocean, a region notorious for generating the world's most intense tropical cyclones. The storm benefited from favorable environmental conditions, including high sea surface temperatures, low vertical wind shear, and high-level atmospheric outflow, which fueled its rapid development. Key intensity metrics. International name, Fung-wong. Local name, Philippines Uwan, used by PAGASA, Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration. Classification, Super Typhoon, St. PAGASA definition, a tropical cyclone with maximum sustained winds exceeding 185 km per hour, 100 knots. Joint Typhoon Warning Center, JTWC, classification, reached an equivalent of Category 4 or even Category 5 hurricane status on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Peak sustained winds, forecasted and observed peak sustained winds varied slightly based on the averaging method, 1-minute versus 10-minute average, but consistently reached an intensity of 185 km per hour to 220 km per hour, 115 miles per hour to 138 miles per hour, near the center. Gustiness, gusts were projected to reach up to 230 km per hour or more. Massive scale, the storm's wind and rain band was exceptionally wide, sometimes covering an area up to 1,600 km across, exposing a vast portion of the archipelago to hazardous conditions. Rapid intensification. A critical factor in the threat posed by Uwan was its rapid intensification, RI, a process where a tropical cyclone's maximum sustained winds increase by 30 knots, 56 km per hour or 35 miles per hour, or more in a 24-hour period. Uwan underwent this process as it tracked westward toward the Philippines, leaving less time for preparations and increasing the destructive potential upon approach. The forecast track of Super Typhoon Uwan positioned it for a devastating impact on the most densely populated island of the Philippines, with a potential extension of impact to neighboring East Asian nations. Primary target, the Philippines. Uwan's primary threat was directed toward Luzon, the Philippines' largest and most populous island, which includes the National Capital Region, Metro Manila. The storm was anticipated to make landfall over the eastern coast of northern or central Luzon, specifically targeting provinces like Aurora and Isabela, late on a Sunday or early Monday. Highly vulnerable regions. Bicol region, southeastern Luzon, often the first area to feel the intense effects of Pacific cyclones. This region faced strong winds and heavy rainfall, particularly in provinces like Catanduanes and Camarines Sur, where high wind signals were first raised. Aurora and Isabela, these coastal provinces were in the bullseye for a direct hit at or near peak intensity, facing catastrophic wind damage and life-threatening storm surge. Central Luzon, e.g., Nueva Ecija, Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino expected to bear the brunt of the storm's core winds and torrential rains as the typhoon tracked inland. Metro Manila, though not in the direct landfall path, the capital region and surrounding provinces, like Quezon, were exposed to strong winds, heavy to intense rainfall, and widespread urban flooding, prompting the raising of high wind signals and the implementation of a red alert status, secondary impact zones. After crossing Luzon, the typhoon was projected to emerge over the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea, potentially posing a subsequent threat to Taiwan. Depending on its exact track and intensity post-landfall in the Philippines, Uwan could bring significant rainfall and strong winds to Taiwan. Southeastern China, parts of southeastern China were also placed on alert for potential impacts as the system tracked further west. 3. Anticipated impacts and hazards. The sheer power of Super Typhoon Uwan translated into multiple, cascading life-threatening hazards. A. Catastrophic winds. Winds of 185 km per hour and above cause catastrophic damage, equivalent to PAGASA Tropical Cyclone Wind Signal number 5. The impact includes widespread structural damage, near-total destruction of lightweight structures and severe damage to medium to high-risk residential and commercial buildings. Infrastructure collapse, severe disruption and likely collapse of electricity distribution, communication services, and transportation networks, power lines, cell towers, signs/billboards. Agricultural devastation, total or near-total damage to crops, particularly high-value crops like bananas and rice in their flowering stage. Many tall trees are broken, uprooted, or defoliated. B. Torrential rainfall and flooding. The storm's wide rain band delivered torrential and prolonged rainfall across Luzon and the Visayas. Widespread flooding. Severe and widespread flooding was anticipated in low-lying areas, riverbanks, and flood-prone urban centers, including Metro Manila. Landslides. The combination of prolonged heavy rain and the steep, mountainous terrain of northern and central Luzon significantly increased the risk of life-threatening landslides and mudflows. Life-threatening storm surge. One of the most dangerous hazards was the potential for a life-threatening storm surge. Height and risk. PAGASA warned of a high risk of storm surge with peak heights exceeding 3.0 meters, 10 feet, above the normal tide level. Vulnerable coasts. Low-lying and exposed coastal communities in provinces like Aurora, Isabela, Quezon, and the Bicol region were most at risk of destructive coastal flooding and inundation. D. Socioeconomic disruption. The total exposure to Uwan's hazards was massive, affecting an estimated 30 million people across the archipelago. This threat led to mass evacuations. Over 1 million people were preemptively evacuated from high-risk villages along coastlines and riverbanks, a crucial life-saving measure. Economic losses. Widespread disruption to agriculture, fishing, commerce, and the vital tourism sector in Luzon, leading to significant short-term economic losses and prolonged recovery costs. 4. Disaster preparedness and response. The Philippine government and local authorities activated the highest levels of disaster response protocol in the face of this monster storm. Government action and public warning. Declaration. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. declared a state of emergency in regions already recovering from a preceding typhoon, Kalmiji, and in anticipation of Uwan's calamity. Alert levels. Disaster alert statuses were raised to red alert in key metropolitan areas like Metro Manila, mobilizing emergency response teams and resources. Wind signals, Tropical Cyclone Wind Signals, TCWS, were raised across a wide area, peaking at the maximum signal number 5 in the provinces directly in the storm's path, e.g., Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, Aurora, Nueva Ecija. Dissemination. PAGASA, the Office of Civil Defense, OCD, and other agencies issued continuous warnings and advisories, urging the public to heed evacuation orders immediately. Preparedness and mitigation measures. Evacuation strategy. Local government units, LGUs, implemented forced and preemptive evacuations, moving people from flood-prone, landslide-prone, and coastal areas to safe evacuation centers. Resource mobilization. Emergency kits, food packs, heavy rescue equipment, payloaders, chainsaws, and rescue personnel were pre-positioned. Infrastructure safeguards. Airports and seaports in high-risk regions suspended operations. Fishing boats were secured in safe areas. Community preparedness. Residents were advised to prepare basic survival items, flashlights, first aid kits, charged cell phones, secure homes, and elevate household items against potential flooding, comparison to past typhoons. Weather agencies frequently compared Uwan's potential destructive track and intensity to recent devastating cyclones, such as Super Typhoon Pepito from the previous year, which affected similar areas like Quezon, Aurora, and Catanduanes, to emphasize the severe nature of the approaching threat and encourage public compliance with safety protocols. 5. Conclusion and long-term implications. Super Typhoon Uwan represents a sobering case study in the escalating threat of climate change-driven extreme weather. while effective preemptive evacuations and preparedness efforts aimed to minimize the loss of life. The storm's sheer power guaranteed massive material damage and a significant humanitarian challenge. The necessary focus in the aftermath would shift to search and rescue/relief, immediate efforts to assist affected communities, clear debris, restore power and communication lines, and provide basic necessities. Recovery and resilience, long-term strategies for rebuilding and enhancing the resilience of critical infrastructure and housing to withstand future, potentially stronger, tropical cyclones. Climate adaptation, reinforcing the urgent need for long-term climate adaptation and mitigation policies to address the increasing frequency and intensity of storms like Uwan in the Western Pacific region. The narrative of Super Typhoon Uwan is not just about a weather event, it is a story of a nation's continuous struggle and resilience against the most violent forces of nature, demanding constant vigilance and proactive disaster management. For more updates, please press the bell icon and subscribe my YouTube channel World Geopolitics 10 and get daily updates like this. Thank you for watching.